Yeah, how you fill classes.
Good morning, all. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. We are gathered today, as we will tomorrow, for tributes to our good friend and sometime colleague, Dr. Vater, and mentor, Francis J. Moloney. So this morning, we're going to hear from a number of folks, and in the first section, right, up till 9:30, Chris Skinner is going to speak. I'm hoping Tuan Do will arrive on screen. And I have something that Mary Colo wrote. Okay. And but I do want to remind everybody online and here that Peter Judge and I will be stepping down from co-convening the seminar. And so folks need to consider stepping up. Okay. Very good. Okay, so we're going to begin with Chris Skinner.
Go first again today, huh?
Yeah, well, you are first in the hearts of all of us, Chris. So
Do I stay where I am? I think we can hear. Or
yeah, can people see you though? That's the question.
everybody see me? If you move out of
It might be easier if.
Oh, there's Frank Matera.
Great.
We can see you. We can see you on Zoom.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'll stay here where I am. I mean, I could talk for hours and hours about Frank. I obviously met Frank in 2000 and enrolled at CUA in 2001, 2002. So I've known Frank for the last 25 years. I've often said that outside of my parents and my wife, my parents and my in-laws, few people have done as much to help me and support me in my adult life as Frank. And that's not hyperbole, that's true. At one point, and Sherry and I were talking about this the other day, speak of the devil. At one point he said, when am I going to stop writing letters for you? When am I going to stop reading the stuff that you have written? I mean, literally, I think he's read everything that I've published in the last 20 years. What's that?
Good morning.
So I just have two things. I mean, I could tell lots and lots of stories, but I want other people to be able to talk. My experience was very different than my colleagues in the DACA program at CUA. I lived in Baltimore. I traveled in. It was 52 miles from my doorstep to Caldwell, where our classes were. I was pastoring a church and I had a family, so I felt like I was missing. I was constantly felt like I was missing out, right? Because my other colleagues, they spent a lot more time together. They were there full time. And so I really wanted to soak up as much time as I possibly could with my professors. And I had about a year and a half span where I would get to campus early, go to my church on the days that I had class, I would do stuff. I would go into DC, I would be there for a few hours and I would go back. But I would try to get there about 30 minutes early just so I could sit in Frank's office and talk to him. And what I remember about that is that he was busy. I mean, like he was busy teaching, he was busy writing. At one point, he became dean of the School of Theology and Religious Studies. And there was never a time where, when I got there, 8 o'clock or 8:30 or 9, that he was like, I don't have time for you today. Every single time he sat there, and like we all have students who come into our offices and sap our energy, right? And I know that I can be the type of personality that can sap the energy of those in the room. And he never betrayed that if that was the case. He always talked to me. Our conversations were always generative and full of helpful stuff from my scholarship, but he always ended by asking, like, how are Tara, how are the kids, how's your life, how are things at your church? So I'm grateful that it didn't feel like, even though I felt like I was missing out, he always made it feel like I was genuinely a part of the community. So another story that sort of exemplifies, we've all read his books, we've all read his articles, we've all been in his presence. We know what a gentleman he is, what a great scholar he is. But I think a story that exemplifies not just my experience with him, but the experience of so many others is, so again, I was working at a church and my funding was kind of tenuous. I didn't have funding from the university. I was footing the bill, but also my church was supposed to help. And I was counting on my church helping out for a full semester. I could take multiple classes, and then right before the semester started, that fell through, and I was pretty distraught because again, I already felt like I was behind. I actually started a semester after everybody in my cohort, and I came in one of these many mornings to talk to Frank, and he could tell that I was down, and he said, tell me what's on your mind. I said, oh, I'm wrestling with next semester. I don't know what I'm going to do. My money fell through. And he didn't say anything. He was, consoled me. And so 2 days later, when I'm there for my next class, I come into his office and he literally hands me a blank check. And he says, I want you to, yeah, all right. I mean, this is, I have to be careful because I get a little choked up thinking about it. He hands me a blank check and he says, you can pay me back whenever. Now, I didn't take it. I ended up taking out a loan because but just the fact that he would, he'd only known me for 2 years. He would hand me a blank check and say, use this, pay whatever it is, pay me back whenever, even after you graduate. I was stunned by the offer. So in my mind, like I've had so many experiences with him over the last 24 years, but that one always stands out in my mind. And when I wrote a book, Reading John with Cascade in 2015, and at SBL they did a little video thing with me, and it was like, where do you come from? What do you do? And the very last question they asked me, and this is on video, I sent it to Frank after the fact, and it was, who are your academic heroes or idols or the people that you look up to? And I said, I can name one and only one right off the top of my head, and it's my adopted father, it's Frank Moloney. And I told this story, and I said, for years and years and years, I read his work, and I thought, this is the type of scholar I want to be. And then I spent 5 years working with him, and I thought, this is the type of person.
Yes. Yes. Now Tuan Do is not here yet online, but yes.
Mary Kate, I received a message from him that the link took him into the wrong meeting. I resent him what I was sent by Joshua Scott.
That happened to Chris Siglenix yesterday. Let me see if I can send it to him.
Okay. Good.
What email address is he using these days?
Okay.
Can you send it to me? Send it to me, Peter, and I'll see if I can get him the link. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, excuse us as we have temporary. Okay. It's tdoarchlou.org.
TDO
at archlou.org.
Arch LOU or LU?
LOU.
Yeah, that's quicker than if I send it. Huh. So they must have sent me the wrong, because he just messaged me to say he's in the seminar on Paul.
That's the same thing that happened to Chris yesterday. Raphael told me he sat in that meeting for 10 minutes and he said, I think I'm in the wrong spot. So.
Oh dear.
Appalling. Ouch.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my Lord. Sorry. Not enough coffee.
That was terrible. All right, hold on 1 second.
So TDO at
Yeah.
ARCHLOU.org.
If I can get it to. For whatever reason, it's not accepting this. All right, would you message him and say that I've just sent the link and see if that works? There we go. All right.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Good morning, Wando.
Good morning. Hold on.
We are.
Which one?
Can we have the next person and then I'll follow because I missed Chris' talk. I'd like to,
We have recorded it and we'll get you.
I can't say it again.
We'll get you the recording. Hello?
can you hear me?
We can. Can you
Yes.
reveal your face? There we go.
Tropical.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Can we have the next person speak before I go join? Because I like to hear what's going on first. I missed the first person. I missed Chris because of the wrong link.
Yes. Yes. Okay, what I have right now is from Mary Colo, PBVM. And I think, I could be wrong, which is not unusual, but I think Mary Colo was Frank's first doctoral student. So she wrote a brief missive. In my undergraduate degree, I was so delighted to have Frank Moloney as my lecturer for the Gospel of John. At this time in his teaching, he was introducing us to a more narrative approach rather than the strictly historical critical method. His insights, sensitivity to symbolism, and use of Jewish liturgical traditions I found deeply moving. Sometimes I was moved to tears by the beauty of the gospel as Frank presented it. No surprise that years later, when I had the chance to do a doctorate, I asked Frank if he would be my supervisor and was delighted with his yes. As well as keeping me on track, Frank showed great faith in me, and I suspect in his other doctoral students, as he allowed us to move in directions he wasn't so sure of. It's your thesis, he would say, not mine. I was surprised when he would ask me to proofread and comment on an article he was preparing. His trust in me helped me to gain trust also in my own scholarship. When the doctorate was completed, Frank continued to advise me regarding publishing and was generously available whenever I needed a reference. In Australia, we have been so blessed in having a generation of New Testament scholars such as Frank, Brendan Byrne, and Dorothy Lee. What gifts they have been. Mary Colo, Professor Emerita, University of Divinity, Melbourne, April 18th, 2025.
Great.
So Tuan?
So, Tuan,
Yes, thank you. Can we all hear one another?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Thank you. My name is Tuan Do. I'm currently a pastor of two communities here in Louisville, Kentucky, the Archdiocese of Louisville, Kentucky. And my journey with Frank going back to 1998, 1999, when I was still a Basilian student in the School of Philosophy at the Catholic University. And Frank, by then, I think he has just joined the Faculty of Theology and Religious Study at Catholic U also in 97. And his name and fame was known among the seminarians. I was in philosophy for that. But after, when I finished the Basel program, one semester early, which is 1999, I believe, yes. And in the spring of that year, I did not know where and what I would like to do next after philosophy. So I signed up, register for the MDiv course in the Gospel of John with other theologian from theological college, and of course Frank was teaching that course, and it is that class or the course on the Gospel of John that I learned from Frank, and I fell in love not only with the New Testaments but also the Gospel of John or the Johannine writings. And so I was there after that year. The late Archbishop Kelly sent me to Louvain. But before that, also during that time, I applied for the Fulbright scholarship to study in Europe. And the Catholic University had 45 or 46 applications that year. And I was selected among the two for interview. And Frank said on my behalf, which even though he only had known me for that semester, he was that generous and grateful. I'm very grateful to him. So but I did not make that cut after the interview. And then the following year, I went to Louvain. And I did not keep in touch with Frank for my remaining seminary training while I was in Louvain. And when I came back, and until about 2010, when I finished my doctoral study in Louvain and Germany, it was the CBA annual meeting in Spokane, Washington that year that we reconnected. And Frank remember me, and of course, I remember him. And it's only from 2010 until now that Frank and I have been connected very close to each other. At the same time in Spokane, Frank said that he was back in Australia then, and he was a full-time professor at the Australian Catholic University, located in Melbourne, which is where he lives still and from. And he mentioned to me that ACU was going to have a position for postdoctoral research, and he asked if I would like to apply. And at that time, I was teaching full-time at Sacred Heart School of Theology in Milwaukee. And I said, sure, I would like to. So I began to apply, and another school accepted me, Helena, Carroll College in Helena, Montana, and also around the same time, the Australian Catholic University. So I was accepted there and appointed the position. And so for the next 6 years, Frank and I was working very close to each other. He was also teaching full-time at Melbourne Catholic Theological College, which is a theologate for the Archdiocese of Melbourne. And I helped him teaching that at that college, and also at South Yarra Theological College. Frank has been a great friend and a mentor and a great colleague. He always poses himself as generous, reaching out and willing to help younger scholars. And every piece of my publications, Frank has always has a touch or an influence behind that. The most recent one, which was out in the Catholic Biblical Quarterly in April, and Frank has read that article multiple times with a lot of good suggestion, and So in many, many ways, I'm very grateful to Frank for his friendship, for his generosity, for his scholarship and contribution, not only to the to myself, but also to the biblical studies and the New Testament in particular. So uh, uh, Frank is, as many of us are aware, he's battling his cancer, and it pains me a great deal to see him going through this in his life. But I'm always grateful to Frank and his friendship and mentorship.
Thank you very much, Juan. Wondering, Frank Matera, we're going to have you go and speak after our break at 10, but since we have some time now, would you be prepared to speak now to all of us?
Sure, Mary Kate, be happy to do that. And
Thank you so much.
really an honor to be able to talk about Frank, a friend and colleague to so many of us, and very difficult time to see him battling cancer. And so I thank you for the opportunity to speak about him from the point of view of a colleague. Frank came to Catholic University at the right time. Joseph Fitzmyer had recently retired from full-time teaching. John Meyer had moved on to the University of Notre Dame. And apart from Raymond Collins, who was then the dean of the School of Theology, I was the only New Testament faculty member. And so we needed a very, very strong shot in the arm if we were going to survive as a biblical faculty. And that's exactly what Frank gave us. Frank came to CUA, as Con mentioned, very well published. He was a senior scholar. He had a strong international reputation, and it would have been very easy for him to just ride on his past accomplishments. But coming to CUA at mid-career, I think that was a real moment of grace, not only for us at the university, but even for Frank. I do think it was during this period that he did some of his most interesting and best work. And what I think is very important, as so many of you are testifying, he became a beloved Dr. Father to what I think is an outstanding group of students. And he became a colleague to us on the faculty at CUA, a colleague who made all of us better in so many different ways. Frank was, and Frank remains, very much a friend. I can say in all honesty, he made me a better scholar, a better teacher, a better doctoral advisor, because I found and saw so many qualities in him that I admired, and I tried my very best to appropriate them and imitate them in my own life. Frank was a colleague in the very best sense of the word. He shared his work with others. He shared his work with me, and he was always genuinely interested in the work of other people. And so I did what many of you did. I regularly stopped by his office just to chat with him, just to discuss what he was working on, and also to share with him what I was working on. Those were very helpful visiting fruitful and memorable visits for me. I got a chance to see how Frank did his research and thought about the projects that he was working on. And when I left the office, I always left with a renewed appreciation of his very insightful and thoughtful scholarship. I was especially struck by the way he read so deeply and also so critically into every topic he was researching, no matter the language. Some colleagues can be secretive. They don't really want you to know what they're doing until it's published. Other colleagues can even be jealous. They can view the success of a colleague as somehow threatening to them. That was not Frank. He always wanted to share his work with others, and he wanted their input. He wanted our input. And so when we asked him to read our own work and comment on it, he always responded in a very generous way. I worked with Frank as a reader on a great number of the dissertations that he directed and supervised. And as I did that, I was always struck by his genuine care and concern for each and every student. As someone already mentioned, he might not agree with the direction a particular student was taking, but he always respected the student and gave the student the freedom to pursue his or her own research in an independent way, the way he himself did. At that time, I was just beginning to supervise doctoral students. And so Frank was a kind of mentor to me, providing me with a model of how a great scholar respects and interacts with his students. As the years passed on, Frank and I became friends as well as colleagues. He was someone in whom I could confide, and he's someone whose company I thoroughly enjoyed. We spent many evenings together, had enjoyed many meals together. As a friend and a colleague, he made life better for everyone on the faculty at CUA. He didn't withdraw into an ivory tower to do his own work, but he took his work and responsibility as a colleague very, very seriously, speaking honestly and frankly to us when it had to be done. And so when the time came to look for a new dean of the school, a position that nearly all of us fled from, we looked to Frank for leadership, and with characteristic generosity of spirit, he accepted that challenging ministry, and as you would expect, he did an outstanding job. After he left CUA, and later when I also returned from CUA to Connecticut as a pastor, he and I remained in frequent communication and contact, and we continued to share our work with each other. He encouraged me as I undertook some new projects. He continued to read manuscripts, and I did the same for him. And so even though we were thousands of miles apart on the other side of the continent, he continued to be a colleague who was interested in what I was doing, and I was always interested in what he was doing. As I look back now at our years at CUA, there are two things that strike me most about Frank. The first is his willingness and courage to think outside the box. He was deeply grounded in his scholarly tradition that he inherited, but he never reduced his scholarship to repeating what other people had already said. He was always finding new ways to think about the fourth gospel and the Gospel of Mark. And this willingness to explore new ways and paths is evident in what I think is one of his most outstanding contributions, his recent commentary on the book of Revelation. I think it's a remarkable volume because he takes the risk of reading the apocalypse in a new way that challenges most contemporary commentaries. And I think he's right. Instead of interpreting it as a prophecy of things that are going to happen in the future, he reads it as a prophetic rereading of what has already happened in the most important event of history, the death and the resurrection of Christ. Second, and most importantly, Frank's scholarship and his relationship with his students is grounded in a deep faith in Christ and a profound love for his own religious community and for the church. Frank is not a scholar who happens to be a priest. He's a priest who studies the Word of God as a scholar for the sake of the church and the people of God. And so his ultimate reason for research and writing is the proclamation of the gospel. And so when his religious order called him to take up new ministries, some of which were outside of his biblical field, he always responded with a very generous yes. While Frank's students rightly think of him as their doctoral father, as the best doctoral father, I cannot think of a better colleague, supportive, faith-filled, inspiring, always interested in others. And so while all of Frank's students justly and proudly called themselves members of his school, and that's correct, I'm proud and very grateful to belong to another school, the school of his colleagues whom he mentored in so many ways. So it's good to be with all of you and to be able to honor Frank in this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah. So, I think many of you on screen in the room have encountered Frank in various capacities. Sherry will speak with us at about 10. But in the next, say, 10 minutes or so, what stories do you have from your encounters with Frank Moloney as perhaps a colleague, maybe a student while he was dean? Alicia, Russell, Cliff, Peter, Harry. Invite you to offer a few words.
I would just say very, very briefly that I never met Frank until we were both together at a CBA meeting a number of years ago, and we were in this seminar, and he didn't know me from Adam. He had no reason to, but I was just struck by his generosity and his welcome, his way of making me feel quite at home. Didn't talk down, didn't act as if no, he was someone far more important, and that I was not important enough to talk to. That just struck me so much. He would welcome people to come and sit with him at meals. He would engage in conversation with anybody, and that always just struck me. I can echo Chris's closing remarks before. You come away thinking that's the kind of person I would like to be. That's the kind of scholar, professional, and colleague that I would like to be. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you, Peter. Any stories?
Just a quick word about Frank's hospitality when I spent a year in Australia, half of it in Melbourne.
Excuse me, can you hear on screen Harry speaking? All right.
Yes.
Thank you, sorry.
So it was Frank territory.
Yes.
And a lot of people knew him, loved him, and respected him highly. And he was there, at least for part of the time that I was there, and was extremely hospitable. So I always enjoyed that kind of relationship, as well as the scholarly engagements at places like the CBA. So he's a wonderful colleague.
Things like that stick out. I'm sure she feels this way. Like going to an Italian restaurant with him is always a treat, because he's spent 11 years studying in Italy and he's fluent, and he knows wine, and so I just remember being so. I grew up in southeastern Virginia, just feeling like I'm with this man of the world, and like, I'm like, what do we do? He's like, oh, he's speaking in Italian and he's ordering the wine, and I'm like, what am I experiencing here? Like I said, I kind of felt like a little kid sometimes in his presence. It was really, it was a lot of fun in those settings. And I'll say, one of the things I didn't say was, I thinking back about Tuan and what Tuan said about being an undergraduate, and him remembering, and I was coming I went to an evangelical seminary, and I had given a conference paper on the Lamb of God that went on to be my master's thesis, then went on to be the first article that I ever published. And the person that was advising me said, find the people that you are most excited about in terms of studying the Gospel of John, and contact them and ask them if they'll read it for you. And so I sent a copy to Alan Culpepper, I sent a copy to Moody Smith, and I sent it to Frank. Well, I got a really nice typewritten letter back from Moody Smith saying, your work, which, he didn't have to do. I got a nice typewritten letter back from Alan Culpepper doing the same. Frank not only sent me a letter, but he sent my paper back with comments. No, I couldn't read them. His handwriting was terrible, but he not only wrote throughout the paper, but as he would with our seminar papers, he had turned it on the blank back, and he had just written, he'd scrawled notes all the way through. And I was sort of stunned. He had, the other 2 gentlemen were very lovely, but it wasn't just that he sent a letter, it was that he took the time to actually engage the paper. And it ended up some of his
He always regretted that, because then he never could get rid of you.
That's true. Stick to him like he's
Anybody else with encounters with Frank?
If I might be able to offer, I did not know Frank very well. I just met him through CBA and through this seminar. But when he was presenting his research on Revelation at CBA, I mentioned that I'd had a book that had just basically agreed with something that he was saying. And I just figured, well, he finished the commentary. He's not going to really be that interested. He actually was really excited about what I had said. And I am certainly not in his level at all. And he was so excited, he's thrilled. He asked for the full title of the book, ordered the book for the seminary school in Melbourne, and actually cited it several times in his commentary. And I thought, I was absolutely shocked, to be honest with you, how excited he was to learn from somebody who's relatively insignificant in comparison. And that almost childlike love for learning from even people who aren't on his level of scholarship just amazed me. And again, what people are saying about his graciousness, I think really struck me.
Thank you, Russell. Yes, to all of that.
I don't have a big anecdote to give, but to reaffirm everything everybody else has said, he was just so gracious and he brought out the best in other people, you know.
Yes.
The only little anecdote I share is one year when we had the meeting at Loyola Marymount University and I heard he was going to be coming, I contacted him and say, hey, would you like to have a room in the Jesuit community so you don't have to stay in the dorms and all that? You know, he was very touched by my generous offer to him, but it was just such a delight to have him there and have him meet some of the other Jesuits. And he was always very, very appreciative, but he didn't give me a blank check to return. But just to be not only so hospitable himself, but to be very gracious and thankful for the hospitality that was also offered to him. So it was just a delight to spend that weekend.
Thanks, Felix.
Mary Kate,
Yes,
I'm just thinking of procedure here. I've received a message from Tim Friedrichsen that he's not going to be able to make it tomorrow.
okay,
So what I'm thinking is we have the video from Eric Wyckoff,
yes.
which is only about 5 minutes or just over 5 minutes. And then your own. I'm thinking that maybe after the break, if we can have Sherry continue, and then if you could buttonhole Joshua Scott or one of the tech people and ask them to help us get hold of that video that I uploaded. I've written to Joshua, but I haven't gotten a response from him. Then we could take care of all our business in the second half today and dispense with tomorrow.
Well, we do need to figure out who's going to carry on the seminar.
Well,
I think we'll have time to do that also.
yeah, I have a feeling that you know, the second half today we'll move right along and we can spend some time talking about the future of the seminar then. I don't mean to be dictating, but that's
Yes.
just my feeling that tomorrow
Yes.
might just be a big void.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so it's now 9:30. We'll reconvene at 10 and begin with Sherry. Thank you all, and I'll look forward to seeing you again in 30 minutes.
Right.
No, I got that. So I didn't finish it. I didn't know, but I'll have some.
Grab some coffee.
So you.
They updated the. What happened?
I think they did. So when they initially had surgery,
Mary Kate,
Yes.
does that make sense to you, what I suggested?
It makes total sense to me.
Yeah. Because for tomorrow we had Eric and then you on the
Right.
schedule along with Tim Friedrichsen, but
Yeah.
Tim, we were just messaging back and forth. He can't make it, I think, because of pastoral duties.
Yes.
for tomorrow.
So, so yeah, we just need to figure out how to,
Sorry to hear that.
play the video.
Right.
I was able
If
to
you can-
listen to the audio, but I wasn't able to get the video to show.
I'm gonna play around. I have it here. I'm gonna play around while you folks are breaking. I'm gonna see if I can get it to play. But you might want to see if you can get some assistance from one of the tech people.
Yep. Okay, I'll see you, in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, the bed is not at all visible on my screen. So rather than,
I can't fall asleep on it.
you know, but if you want to stretch out on the bed, you'll at least be more
Let me just
comfortable.
confirm I have the right video. Okay. With you real.
Hmm?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
The right person.
That's the right one. He was going to go tomorrow. but
Oh, okay.
we're Timing, so.
Okay.
I think that's exactly what.
Perfect. I will get it loaded on this computer, so all you should have to do is share it to Zoom. Or do you want me to get it pre-shared for you?
Share it,
I
please.
can do that.
Thank you so
Some
much.
people are like, we have other things we want to do first, so I'll pre-share it for you, so it'll all be already to get typed, and I'll swing back around. I'll start here, because I know you guys have it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Folks on Zoom, I'm just gonna test this really quick. If someone's there, can you just
Oh,
tell me
good.
if you can hear it?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Can you guys hear that?
I can hear some sound, but it's very garbled and very low.
Got it. Let me. This is why I wanted to test. Okay, I'm gonna give that another try.
Thank you to Peter and Mary Kate for this chance to participate through a
Better?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. That should be
Very
all
good.
set for when you guys get back from coffee break.
All right, so what do we need to do to play it? Just hit play at the bottom or?
Yep, just hit the play button and I'm gonna swing back around at 10 when we're back, so.
Oh, okay.
But
All
yeah,
right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
yeah, of course. And then if anything goes wrong, you guys have Chris Skinner in your section. He's got my personal phone number, so. The perks of having one of my dissertation committee on your
All right.
team.
I presume someone there in the room needs to push play, right?
Yes.
Not me.
Not you. Someone in the room will hit play for you.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Of course. Have a wonderful session.
Thanks a lot. Get you anything? I can give you this.
Roberto, thank you.
Yeah, no, think, if, co-convener or co-chair is somebody who is familiar with the way this all works, it's good. The other caveat, the meetings ever on July 27th, I'll have to attend virtually.
July, I think it's July 17th, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine if it's, but whenever it lands on July 27th, I'll have to attend.
Sherry's gonna be talking in my.
Awesome.
You folks, well, I gotta need to go to the bathroom too, so. Thank you though. This is the video, by the way. Megan got it pulled up, so.
What do we have? Sorry, I'm Zach.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, nice to meet you. Where are you, Elizabeth?
I'm Marquette,
Okay, great.
my last year dissertating.
Oh, great. What are you running?
Psychology in John.
Okay, great. So you talked to Chris.
A little bit,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a couple more to sharing, but.
Sure, yeah. Very cool. Who's your director at Mike? Oh. Great. Michael.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how you're in your final year. I finished.
All you gotta do
Like 2 years, so I finished.
Right here.
Whenever it's like part of the Marquette Williams, it's like, I think we might have overlapped at some.
About a minute or two.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
just that.
Yeah,
And everybody else, Alessandro.
yeah, so I finished, in 2020.
Ratings.
But if you begin,
It's Chris.
parents.
Yeah, Yeah, well, so it's funny, I seem to work with him on narrative.
And,
Terrible.
then we'll go to Sherry.
But no, he was my.
Finish with. That seemed like a good plan.
Okay, I think I heard what you said.
Yeah, Eric,
So
yeah.
in with Eric's.
He just finished last year.
Video.
Yeah, I do.
Yep. Mary Kate, can
Yeah,
you
it was
step
funny, we
back
kind of
a little
like,
bit?
none of us came
The
in.
people who are talking in the middle of the room are coming through really loud and clear, but I can't.
Yeah, so she did performance and apocalyptic.
So speak from there.
We're waiting for Sherry.
See you later.
Okay,
So yeah, so there's 3 of us who were on performance.
That's
This is the right time of year
Yeah.
to be in.
Love to hear more about
The lake's
it.
right there.
Yeah, definitely, yeah,
so the
there's
the
good.
one of the tech assistants came in and set the video up.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
there she is.
So where are you now?
So I'm at small Christian.
I'm not the video. I should.
Are you,
Yeah.
planning to make?
So,
Oh,
I don't think
Of course, my pleasure. It was just that I still had some options there. It's not found it all. I was like, okay, gotta change something.
But, so my wife and I,
It's all sad. We've touched it. Folks on it. So they.
I told her, like,
See it.
finally in our last year, I felt like we had just.
I don't know. I've been doing okay, so maybe, you know, I will.
Weather is different. Political environment, social environment, all this, yeah. Differently, but, yeah. Rural, like,
Are you ready, Sherry?
beyond like the Alabama.
Okay, thank you for returning for the second half. And Sherry is going to share with you her experiences of Frank.
I will do my best. Thank you. I started writing some things out and then there was just too much. And so I decided that, you know, I have some things in mind, but I would just allow some, you know, what came to me today to come. But it's great to see you, Frank Matera. I just want you to know. So I met Frank in the fall of 2001, just before Chris did. As he said, he started the second semester that year. So, he was Frank, again, like everyone has said, I met him because he would always sort of come out in the hallway when we were having our Greek classes and the other seminars were going on and they'd go on break. And so he'd be sure to come out and so that he could meet people and join and chat and teach people proper Australian slang. And so typically at CUA, they don't allow students to take the seminars. Well, I'll say 25 years ago, typically at CUA, I'm not sure what the practice is today. They don't allow students to begin to take the doctoral seminars until they've finished all of their language training. And but I was not finished with my language training, but I needed a third class and wasn't quite sure what to do. And so I asked, and Frank Moloney was going to offer a seminar on the Catholic epistles, and I really wanted to take it. And so I asked for permission to get in. And unlike a lot of my colleagues in the cohort, I already had an MDiv from YDS. And so because of that, they allowed me, Frank allowed me to take the class. And like I teased Chris earlier, he's probably regretted it ever since because he can't get rid of me. And so that was, and Chris also was in that class. He had done tons of language training already. And so that's when Skinner and I met as well. And we haven't gotten rid of each other since either. So, but But like Chris, Frank almost immediately became very special to me, and for everything. I became his research assistant. Eventually, I became his unofficial teaching assistant, and I just remember he always just seemed like half amused and half bemused by me, but he seemed to enjoy it. And I remember he started ending his emails to me with "Go gently, Sherry." and I remember telling Chris and Kelly Iverson, our other colleague, that once, and Kelly was like, "What does he mean by that?" I said, "Well, apparently he thinks I'm kind of a spaz." and so then at one point I started calling him Papa, and that's been our tradition ever since. I address emails to him as Dear Papa, and he closes them with "Go gently, Sherry." So 25 years later, lots has changed, but our relationship, I think, with Frank has only grown deeper. I started at CUA because of that's a whole, my story is a whole other process, but I wanted to study John, and him being there was a huge draw for me. So, but he was working at that time, we're just finishing a commentary on the Gospel of Mark. So then he offered a full year on Mark, fall 1 to 8, spring 9 to 16, and Chris and Kelly and our friend Greg and others, Matt Whitlock, were in that full year with him, and it became a very tight group. And so, as Frank Matera said, we named ourselves the Moloney Shula. And again, that's still Frank will sometimes email me, and he'll say, "Can you contact the Shula and tell them," or something like that, or if we're all going to have the opportunity to be here, definitely find the Shula and get together. So we were so pleased. Our last sort of major reunion was at Santa Clara several years ago when Frank was last here. And then I was finally able to take a John seminar with him, and that seminar gave me the kernel for my doctoral dissertation, and we sort of went from there. And so, and as others have said, he became dean. He became and right before he was called back to Australia. I don't know if you remember this, Chris. We had a reverse surprise birthday party for him, and we called it a reverse surprise because I told him I was going to take him out for his birthday, but the Shula had planned this party at my place, and Chris and Kelly and Dan Clare and Greg were not around very often because we were all writing by that point, and they weren't around. I still lived right in an apartment near campus, so and I told Frank, I was like, "Oh, we'll go out to dinner, but we just need to stop by my apartment for a minute." And we get there, and all of these quite tall guys are standing there in a row going, "Surprise!" And then it was like we said, reverse surprise, because then everybody who walked in the door, Frank sits down. I had this purple chair, which was kind of his throne when he was at my place. And every time somebody new would come in, they'd walk in and go, "Surprise!" And so it was a very strange reverse surprise party, but it was a lot of fun. we were all scared when Frank was called back but he made sure that he got emeritus status, and everyone agreed that we could continue writing with him. And but since then, I have traveled the world to meet up with Frank in various places, and he has made quite a number of extra trips to visit me. So we've become, I mean, he's my second father in many ways. And my first trip to Australia in the spring of 2007 was, while he was provincial, was to live there at the provincial house for several months and write. And he was quite busy as provincial because it was all of Oceania. So he was often traveling to the islands, but he would come back and drop the hammer, and I would write some more. And I always think it's funny that as much as he has influenced me, because now I write like him, probably. I certainly while I was there started talking like him, and but then he would start using all of my weird slang as well. And one of the phenomena of my doctoral board was that all three were named Frank. Frank Moloney, Frank Matera, and Frank Gignac. And so I started referring to them as either Frank Cubed or the Franks. And it didn't take long before Frank Moloney started doing that too. And I would give him a chapter and we would go back and forth, and I would be like, well, is it ready to send to the Franks or not? And he would say, give it one more pass and then you can send it to the Franks. And so there was all of this, again, give and take back and forth that, and just fun that I never would have expected from my doctoral advisor. And as we in the Biblical Studies department looked around at the other departments in the School of Theology, in Semitics, we saw such very, very different experiences that other students, what did you say?
Said grim.
Yeah, grim experiences that other students were having. And again, in our department, it wasn't just Frank Moloney, because Frank Matera, Frank Gignac, man, that he would go to the wall to support and defend his students. So we were so blessed. And like Chris said, we had a particularly difficult Hebrew professor, difficult personality-wise, and I also had him for Aramaic, and we came to say, well, he is our example of how not to be a teacher, but we are far more blessed to have Frank Moloney as an example of the teacher that we want to be, and as Chris said, the person that we want to be. It was at the CBA, and so as the years go by and I get my first faculty position, I was teaching the Gospel of John, and I realized, well, that there were no good entry-level textbooks on the Gospel of John. In order to teach it, I would have to cobble together lots of different things. Now, this is more common, course packs and the like are more common for undergrads now, but at the time, that was difficult, and it made their textbooks expensive, for the students. And so I really wanted to write an entry-level textbook on the Gospel of John, and I kept thinking about it and figuring out how to do it, but I'd only, I think by that point, published my dissertation and a few articles, so who's gonna leave that to me? And so it was at the CBA at Gonzaga in Spokane and Frank was there. He would come much more often when they were on the West Coast as he got older and travel got more difficult for him. And I remember we were like standing in the hallway and I said, I know, you write it with me. And he was like, no. And I was like, Oh, yeah, that's it. And and I knew that it was only a matter of time before I sucked him in. And of course, then we got a contract. And so again, so across continents, before Zoom was a thing, we wrote an entry-level textbook on the Gospel of John, and for folks who have no biblical background. And we would, again, it was similar to the writing of my dissertation, although as everybody has said, with Frank, your dissertation, it's your argument, it's your paper. But you know, and so it was guidance and support. When we were writing the book together, it was a little bit more difficult because then he was like, my name's gonna be on this. And I was like, and it took a lot to convince him. Has never taught undergrads and never written for that level. And it took a lot of convincing for me to get him to understand how terribly structured it needed to be and consistent, and how often we needed to repeat things. And he would be like, you already said that. I was like, I know, but we have to say it again here in order to introduce this. And so finally, and I didn't do it, somebody else gave him an intro level New Testament textbook, which he read because he read everything ridiculously quickly. And he was like, oh, okay, I get it now. They really don't know, they really don't have vocabulary. I was like, no. Yeah. So, you have to explain everything to them. I'm like, yes, yes. So we got that out, and I just, I had and then that led to a new entry-level New Testament textbook. Because, so we published with Erdman's, and Erdman said, well, because you gave so much background in this John textbook, assuming none, it wouldn't be much for you to take that and turn that into a New Testament textbook. So we did that, and I had this one at home, so I brought it, I just passed it around. But one would think that at the time, a scholar on my level and a scholar on Frank's level, Frank would insist on being named first. And yet that never occurred to him. And finally, I broached the subject with him and said, because he was always just like, well, no, your authors are named alphabetically. That's just how it works. So finally, I broached the subject and I said, are you okay with us being alphabetic in the title? And he was like, well, why wouldn't we be? And I said, well, because of who you are and who I am, I'm just afraid that if we name you first, I will be taken as like a research assistant, you know? And he was like, well, it never occurred to me. Of course you're going to be named first. And so on both of the books that we wrote together, I was named first, which again has been important for my career, and I appreciate that for him. As I've said, there have been a number of occasions where he has been somewhere in the world that I could get to, and I would go visit him, or he went out of his way to visit me, both when I was at Niagara and then when I was at Creighton. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how I got so blessed to have a doctoral advisor who has been such a mentor and member of my family and taken the care of me that he has. He does joke that he will never get rid of us, but he loves it. And he is very clear about how proud he is of us. We were sort of his last cohort. Chris, Greg, and I defended over the course of 2 days all together, and that was just important for all of us. I was able to see him last year. I went to the SNTS was in Melbourne, and I made sure to go. And he was doing very well. And after he retired from teaching, he was sent out to this Salesian high school about 45 minutes outside of Melbourne. And at first, Dorothy Lee calls me and she was like, "They're sending Frank away." He was
mad already.
We were all so
Yes.
mad. And he was born and raised in Melbourne. They should let him stay in Melbourne. Well, it turns out that, and he was not happy either, but he was, properly obedient. And we were like talking about writing letters, and he was like, "Don't you dare write anybody any letters." But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It's a beautiful, big high school campus, and I think it was very good for him, and especially even during the pandemic, it was good for him to be there and not in Melbourne. So, but I say that because he was doing quite well at SNTS last year, and then I stayed with him out at Ravenswood for another week or so and took my own bucket list trip to Uluru, but during that time. But again, I can't, I wouldn't be here where I am in my career. I don't even know if I would have a career without him. But also, as Chris said, constantly guiding us as to be proper, good human beings as well. I was devastated to learn that he had cancer, but it didn't slow him down for quite a while. In fact, he was quick to tell me that he had two other books coming out, and these are, you can get these on Amazon. They are published in Australia. New Testament Matters, Volume 1 and Volume 2, including some reworking of older thoughts, but a lot of new things. And the first chapter of Volume 1 is called An Australian Irish Biblical Scholar, and it's his own biography. And it's fantastic. Yeah, I'll pass these around as well. So I encourage you to pick those up because they're written to be more accessible, and you need to know about his story. So I haven't seen him in person for a year now. He hasn't wanted to Zoom. I think he feels he's been so weak and he doesn't want to do that. He's still kept up with email, although he hasn't responded to my last email, but he tells me that I have to give him more than 24 hours to respond now before I get worried. So I'm trying to give him some space. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you. I mean, in many ways, it's a repeat of what everybody has said, but that he has been a blessing certainly to me and to our shula, but also to the guild. I know it's always so great, when he would make it to CBA and people would be so pleased to see him, and Frank's here.
It's like a plus, yeah.
And so he's such a remarkable human being, and I think he has sometimes been under-regarded broadly in the field. And so I'll close just by saying that I hope that you all will join me in making sure that we keep the gifts that he's given all of us alive in our scholarship, and I know in our scholarship and in our teaching. And in our relationships. So thanks for this time.
Thank you, Sherry.
Jerry. All these books too, it's incredible, and Sherry knows this because it's been a refrain. When Frank left to go back to Australia in 2006,
I know what you're gonna say.
we had a meeting with Jerry, myself, Greg, Kelly, Dan, the last students that Frank had. And I took us out and we took a picture in front of the Basilica there at CUA. And he was talking about a commentary on Matthew that he was working on that never materialized. And he's like, this will probably be the last book I write. This was in 2006, and he's written, I think, like 16 books since then, including a major commentary in the book. So the refrain, this is probably my last book, has kind of been a joke every time.
It's because that was not the last time you said that.
Yeah, he would say it and then write 3 more books.
Yeah. Yeah, and we just, I was gonna mention that picture. We all have that picture like on our desks. All of us in the Shula and Frank Moloney, so it's, yeah.
We have a short video from a member of his own community, the Salesians, Eric Wyckoff, and Eric will tell us how significant Frank has been in his own life as a community member and as a mentor, and basically making it possible for him to do doctoral. So if I can.
I think you just pushed the little
button
in the middle.
here.
Maybe too loud when it first comes on. Not loud enough.
Hello, Frank, and greetings to all of you. Sorry I can't be there. Thank you to Peter and Mary Kate for this chance to participate through a pre-recorded message. I'm Eric John Wyckoff, formerly of the Salesian Pontifical University's Jerusalem campus, and currently a member of the faculty at Don Bosco Prep in Ramsey, New Jersey. What I have to say is not about Frank's great contributions to scholarship on the Gospel of John, the Gospel of Mark, the Book of Revelation, narrative criticism, or so many other areas. Rather, this is a chance for a fellow member of the Salesians of Don Bosco to show gratitude to my confrere and a fellow priest. Blessed are all of you who are members of the Moloney Shula, who have had Frank as your official advisor and mentor. Our Salesian congregation does many great things all over the world on behalf of youth, but we are not always tuned into academic matters. While I was teaching at our theological school in Mexico, I was told that I would probably never again work in academia, so the degree for me was a Doctor of Ministry at Barry University in Miami. But Frank generously served as the reader of my thesis. Shortly thereafter, when superiors asked me to go back to teaching, Frank helped me get permission to go for a licentiate at the Pontifical Biblical Institute. When I was hatching a plot to work on a doctorate while I was teaching in Jerusalem, it was Frank who helped me define a topic and choose an approach. In the garden of the Salesian Provincial House in Vienna, Austria. That may sound a little bit James Bond, but if there's anyone who is the James Bond of New Testament studies, it is certainly Francis J. Moloney. My doctoral advisors at the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum were Alessandro Cavicchia, who is probably watching right now, ciao, and Ed Greenstein, a Hebrew Bible scholar. But Frank was the external censore, literally censor, that they brought in to approve me to begin the writing stage of the doctorate. You all know better than I what a dedicated advisor, a patient mentor, and a generous promoter of his students Frank has always been. This is the part of his legacy that I very much want to take with me and that I put before the eyes of everyone today. With our students, let's do as Frank did. Make time to speak with them. Get to know their work and what it is they are trying to do. create circumstances for them to succeed, and treat them as future colleagues. You never know. Here in my Salesian community in New Jersey, 3 of my community members are my former students, including my superior. So for us Salesians, this is our charism, to try and promote and accompany and help people along. For all of us as professionals in the academic field, this is a great, great quality to emulate. As a fellow Salesian, Frank has never been too busy or too famous to give retreats or to publish pastoral materials for the Salesian family, either in print or online, or just to be one of the guys. You never know when you might find him speaking at Salesian events in Samoa or Fiji or Papua New Guinea, or coming to a humble Salesian campus in Jerusalem to deliver lectures. Thank you, Frank. Or giving the keynote at a Eucharistic Congress in the Philippines. Frank put his academic career on hold to serve as Salesian provincial in Australia, guiding that province through some challenging times. During Frank's years here in the USA, he was happy to be involved in all sorts of events of our province and in the community life of the Salesian community there in Washington. So I'm trying to take your good example, Frank. That's why I'm unable to be at CBA this year. I'm leading a retreat for the faculty of our Salesian High School in Miami. So, prayers for you, greetings to everyone. Thank you, and God bless.
Stop, share.
Yeah, stop sharing.
There we go. Wow. That was wonderful. So, I've always said, much to some people's rolling of eyes, that I am Frank Moloney's American firstborn. Part of what I'm going to share, I've written, and the other part, it's going to be off the cuff, which is great because I only have 11 minutes left and I could ramble, so you're safe. Let's see. I met Frank Moloney early in the summer of 1998 because of John Meyer of blessed memory. Father Meyer had departed Catholic University somewhat precipitously during the spring for Notre Dame, leaving behind a biblical studies department scrambling for an appropriate replacement. According to Frank Gignac, SJ, of very happy memory, Joe Fitzmyer, old Fitzy, as Frank was wont to say, had warned Ray Collins, Dean of the School of Religion and Religious Education at the time, as only Joe Fitzmyer could warn someone, he would do in the class, UZ, under no circumstances was Ray to try and get John Meyer to stay at CUA by paying him more. And that he, Joe Fitzmyer, would make sure that CUA's Department of Biblical Studies would have someone to take this opening, someone who was outstanding. Cue Francis James Moloney. So that summer, I was given charge of corralling all the bib studies, doctoral students together to go out to lunch with Frank at the local watering hole, Colonel Brooks, so that he might check us out and we him. So for 90 minutes or more, 7 or 8 guys and I chatted with Frank about all things New Testament. My burning question was, of course, how many doctoral students' dissertations have you directed before? And his answer, 15, very clear. I was like, okay. All right, very good. So it was a done deal, again, according to Frank Gignac, but legally, the university still had to advertise for the position. So Fitzy crafted a job posting so narrow that no one but Francis James himself could have filled it. As a result, Frank arrived for the spring term of 1999, and thus the American Moloney Schuler began several years of hard work and great delight. Those of you who know me may wonder how I came to have Frank Moloney, the consummate Johannine and Markin scholar, as my dissertation director, given almost all of my doctoral seminars were in Paul, except for a seminar with Fitz in Acts while he was writing his commentary. Besides, I was planning to write in Paul. So because of internal CUA staffoos, the professor who ordinarily would have directed me was headed for a year-long sabbatical just as I was going to begin writing. And Frank, because he is a man of deep compassion, great generosity, and justice, agreed to direct my thesis on 1 Corinthians after I explained the situation that I had found myself in. And I continue to be deeply grateful to him for agreeing to do so. Even though at the time he claimed that if Brendan Byrne, SJ, ever heard that he was directing a dissertation on Paul, would ask, what does Frank Moloney know about Paul? And today I would answer Brendan's question with a heck of a lot. Now, the same certainly cannot be said of what I know about John's Gospel and Letters. So as I was writing, one of the things, once, Frank, once you get your dissertation topic approved, I don't want to see you without something in writing. It's like, okay, so let's say by August, I had got that. And so, all right, go write. So I sat down to write, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And finally, Frank emailed me, said, well, how are you doing? I said, well, I've got about 65 pages. And he's like, oh, why don't we meet? Send it to me as an attachment. And I said, an attachment? So Frank had to teach me how to send electronic files as attachments. So we did that. Well, I was writing in WordPerfect, and he worked only in Word. So that, when he opened it up, it didn't work very well. So I took, illegally, of course, my WordPerfect disks at that time. I think it was 6.0. I've now been converted to Word because nobody uses WordPerfect anymore. So I took my Word disk, a WordPerfect disk, over to him, and he loaded this onto his computer, and he could read what I sent him. So come January of that year, I had a visit from, I guess people would say superior, we call them area directors. But anyway, arrived to tell me that this was now my 5th year. I was into my 5th year, I was writing. And so it was time for me to come home. And I could just finish writing in Springfield, no libraries, and go on the weekends to Boston to get books. So when I asked, would it be all right? I said, so if I finish the dissertation and, defend it, and then got a job in California. Could I get the, well, yeah, you could, but you've been away for too long. It was a nightmare. So anyway, so we finally agreed that as long as I was working, come the fall, at least part-time, I could stay in DC. So anyway, I went, I was like, you can imagine, sweating bullets. And so I went to Frank and he said, all right, now they've put you through the ringer, but it's going to be okay. You'll keep writing this semester and then something will come up in the fall. So something did. So I had one course at Georgetown. And then I got an offer for a full-time position to replace a semester abroad professor, my predecessor now, at Mount St. Mary's. So I had written 2 chapters. Dissertation was all of 3, very long chapters. And so I finished writing while I was commuting both ways, an hour, and teaching 4 courses full-time that were brand new to me. And Frank was with me all the way. And I remember, and I finished. And I remember, by the way, Frank Gignac was great at textual criticism on my dissertation. I've saved it all. And someday I'm going to go back and reread because I think he went through a gross of red pens. That's why I correct in green. So
PTSD.
that's it. May God be good to him. So come March of that year, early March, I was done. And we sent it off to Frank Gignac, who wrote back outraged that I had followed the SBL.
Oh, yeah.
And
CBQ style.
oh, I was like, and I remember sitting in the office I was assigned at Mount St. Mary's, and I called Frank Moloney. Like, I was in tears. I was trying to, but you could hear it. He's like, it's okay, take a breath. It'll be okay. You don't have to do this all at once. Just take a couple of pages every day and go through it. It'll be okay. You can do this. You don't have to do it, and I'm like trying to, each new 9 yards. Well, he was right. I got it done. And I remember the day of my defense, as I'm sure all of us can remember that. But, and of course, the department secretary had said to me, don't worry, the champagne bottle's in the refrigerator. And I was like, yeah, again, sweating bullets. And Frank, ahead of time, as I suspect he did for all of us, handed us a list of questions he would kind of come up with. Didn't give us the answers, but and so, and then we began. And then, of course, we had to go out while they, decide what your fate is. So, so anyway, so there I'm kind of like, and I thought it was taking a long time. So I was like, this is going to be so embarrassing. So Frank came to the door, knocked on the door, opened it up and said, Sister Mary Kate, excuse me, Dr. Burge, I presume. And I was like, and then he says, as he's clasped me in his arms, with distinction. And it took the department secretary to tell me that I was the first in the 25 history year history of the department to have done so. So, and since I was the first of Frank's dissertation students, I think he was happy with that too. Since then, we have stayed in touch, not as frequently as some, but always always in my heart, Frank has a place of mentor and model of teacher and scholar and human being. So Frank, since you're going to be getting these, know that we, one, love you, two, admire you, and really want to be like you. And we thank you very much for your great gifts to all of us. I'm very happy to report that Gilberto and Felix have agreed to be co-conveners of, in the future of this seminar on John's Gospel and Letters. So let us go forth. Enjoy life. Thank you all.
Let me just briefly then say, so we're not going to be meeting tomorrow morning.
And we are not meeting tomorrow morning since we have covered all of the business
But we
today.
need to plan for next year's program and all that. So if you think of any topics or speakers or papers or ideas that you would like, then please.
Or if you are not on the official list yet, I have a piece of paper and invite you, you're on the list, aren't you? Yeah. To write down your name and phone number and email. And with this, we conclude. Thank you all.